Hey everyone, Apple here, and I figured I would do a short little video on a game called The Long Dark and why I think you should give it a go. So, what is this game? The Long Dark is a survival game placed in the Canadian wilderness where your plane has gone down due to a geomagnetic event and must survive the blistering cold. That's it. There's no story as of now, but there should be when the full game releases, as this is an early access game. And the game gets updated for the free roam or sandbox mode fairly frequently. You don't only face off against Mother Nature. There are, of course, bears and wolves pitted against you, but for the most part, you're on your own. No one else there to help you, just you and your thoughts, and some admittedly nice ambient music. You start off spawned randomly in one of several available maps at the start, although you can eventually travel to each one if you do well enough in one game, and all the loot within is random. You'll want to get hopefully some shelter, food, and a hunting knife or hatchet off the bat, as these will help you immensely with crafting, gathering, and a whole host of other things. Let's talk crafting, because as this is an early access survival game, quote unquote, you expect there to be some crafting, and there is, but not as much as you might expect. The game does not allow you to craft most things without the use of a workbench found in various locations within the world, or a forge, or something of similar nature. So for the most part, when you play this game, exploration and scavenging is going to be your best bet for survival, but be careful, the weather and what clothing you're wearing is going to be key to survival as well. As I mentioned before, the weather is a huge factor in this game. In fact, it's your worst enemy. It can be 35 below Celsius with a 10 below wind chill, or perhaps the next day only 5 below. You need to plan your trips accordingly and don't spend too much time outside long. You never know when the weather can change for the worst. Shelter in the form of a house of some description is best, but a burnt out building or a cave can do just as well. Just make sure you're alone in there. You don't want a bear coming when you're about to take a sleep. Perhaps the biggest factor in this game that really hooked me is the time mechanic. Everything you do takes time. Want to break apart a branch to make sticks? That takes time. Time outside in the cold. That can lead to hypothermia even faster. You need to manage your time and make sure it's safe to do whatever action you want to complete. Don't be outside wanting to break down a bookshelf when it'll take 3 hours and 700 of your stored calories, and you can only have a max of 2,500. You will, depending on weather, almost certainly die in that amount of time. Or, at the very least, hypothermia will get a hold of you. When I got hold of a gun one time, I shot a bear. I can't remember how many times. I think I might have only hit it once with a shot, but then I ran inside, since it was chasing after me. After completing some things indoors, which totaled maybe about 5 hours or 6 hours, I then proceeded to continue on a scouting mission. A little ways down the road, or a little path I was going along, I found the bear, and it had just begun to start to freeze, which means he had died over time, and fairly recently he just died. And that really made me love this game. With this time mechanic, it also means that there aren't really any animations per se. There are some animations, like if you get attacked by a wolf, you have the animation of fighting back against the wolf, or I assume there's something for the bear, but I've never been attacked by one yet. But for the most part, if you're just doing basic stuff, you don't really get an animation, you just get a completion bar. I personally love this because you don't have to see the same canned animations over and over and over. It's just something you have to do. Now, the aesthetic of this game, to me, is fantastic. All the colors blend together so smoothly. The lighting inside of buildings throughout the game all add in a sense of emptiness. Even the lighting outside, even though to me is slightly worse than indoors, but still good, especially when nice fog rolls in or weather effects like that, or a sunrise or a sunset comes around. And that leads into how well the colors, although fairly simplistic, are bright and bold enough to say wow whenever they come together in such a manner. This was a game that I had been completely overlooking, and it kept cropping up on my Steam recommendations for probably the last year and a half. I decided just on a whim that I should give it a shot. I thought it could maybe do something better than the others I had seen or played, and to my surprise, it not only feels completely different, but it made me feel like I was actually in a hostile winter landscape, where the biggest fear is simply freezing to death. There's no gimmicks. That's just it. You have to not freeze. You can pick up items along the way to get some nicer gear so you can last out in the cold longer without getting hypothermia. You can, of course, treat yourself with various items you also find, but obviously you don't want to catch those things in the first place. And I think the biggest thing to me is just the time and how it means there's no animations, and it's just something you have to compete with, and you need to make sure that you're aware of. You don't want to spend time outside doing something when you would rather do it inside, or at least in a shelter where you're sheltered from the wind and most of the cold. That really gets to me how much I like this. And also with the no animations, I don't have to keep seeing the same animations over and over and over again. And I really appreciate that. Because with most survival games, you get the same sort of animation for about like 5 different tools. And I personally am not a fan of that. So yeah, I think you should give this game a go. If you enjoy a stressful yet weirdly soothing game experience, then when there's no gimmicks and you just fight nature, then I think you'll absolutely enjoy this game, no question. If you're looking for something a little more like action-packed perhaps, or building, there is no building in this game to speak of. It's not like a game, say Rust, where you can build a base or something along those lines. It's just surviving. You just survive. You go around the world, you survive. That's all you do. But if that's all you want, I think this game really does it well. It's no gimmicks, no frills, just an amazing experience. And I think, especially for the price, I think it's a good cost, and I think a lot of people could afford it. And I feel like it's one of these games that sort of has been swept under the rug from all of these other games coming out. And I don't know, I just feel like you all should give this game a shot. And I personally feel like this does the survival part better than most of them do. Because most of them have survival, but it's sort of tacked on in a weird way. Like, oh yeah, you gotta eat and survive and stuff like that, but it's not really your main idea. Like, in Rust, really what you want to do is build a base, but you're not really worried about food or hunger or water, because it doesn't go down all that fast. But in this game, it does. It very much does. So you have to constantly scavenge. So that's my thought on this game, The Long Dark, and that's why I think you should give it a go. I'm going to leave you with some, just a little bit more gameplay in the background, and just so you can hear the ambient music going on. I just think it's great. Anyway, have a good one, guys, and I hope you enjoy.
Use this. Hope nobody needs this anymore.